Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Shay Ryan Douglas here from Earth Heroes TV, and I'm joined with Vaughn from Ascension Wisdom TV. Very exciting. Thank you for joining me, Vaughn.
Oh, thank you for having me again. It's always
Absolutely. And thanks to the listeners who tune in. I just want to really highlight and emphasize that we really love opening these discussions and having these conversations as an opportunity to invite you guys as the viewers into the conversation as well. And so we'd love to hear from you if you want to write in the comment section where you're tuning in from in this live moment, or if you have any questions that we could unpack a little bit deeper or a little bit further. But today we had intended to look at and explore these deeper synchronicities that may appear in our life and open up the conversation around some of the stories of miracles that have happened and been recorded on this planet, and then asking those deeper questions. Are these synchronicities, or are they happening by coincidence? Is it both? And really, trying to understand and comprehend or understand what is making up the fabric of the universe that we find ourselves in. Are we co-creating it, or is it just happening to us? Some of these deeper questions. But I'm sure Von's got some wonderful stories to share around some of her experiences in witnessing or experiencing miracles in life. So I'm curious as to how this is going to go, and excited that we've got Yvonne. And I just wanted to mention as well, anyone that is tuning in right now, that Yvonne has a great series of videos that really explore all of these conversations around consciousness and quantum physics and spiritual development and growth and personal health and well-being. And she's been doing this work for a number of years, hosting workshops and bringing community together. And I just want to encourage you, if you really love this, go and check out the videos as well, because they're really, really good quality, and there's some great gold in there. But so, Yvonne, what do you have a story for us of a miracle that maybe has happened for you in your life?
Well, the reason that we're really bringing this up is because we are moving into a higher state of consciousness as a humanity. Well, the planet is moving there, and those of us who would like to travel with it, that is where we're going. And in that higher state of consciousness and frequency, things like miracles and coincidences and synchronicities are the norm. That is how actually nature works. And it's because we have been told that we're not nature. We don't see ourselves as nature. So therefore we miss them. They're happening around us all the time. And I just want to share one that happened today. And it happens to me almost every day. So for those of you who follow me, I write a Facebook post every morning. And when I say I, it's not the Von me, it is whatever energy that, I give room to express itself through me. And I never know what we're going to write about. And I sit there going, well, what's happening. And whatever topic comes up, within minutes, there will be some sort of message from either through a YouTube channel or on a Facebook that are actually are speaking about exactly the same subject as I'm about to write on. And so this happened this morning because we're doing this topic because Shay said to me the last time we spoke, gosh, I'd love to be talking about miracles. And so I had that on my mind for some time. And then this morning, I was looking forward to doing this live. And I thought, oh, gosh, this is going to be so much fun. And all of a sudden, there was an alert from a lovely woman called Milou, or Lilou rather, a French girl who does these wonderful interviews. And she was interviewing the author of Celestine Prophecy. And what did they talk about? Miracles, coincidences, and synchronicity. That was filmed in September, I think, of 2021, and she'd only just posted it. And it was exactly this morning, and I just laughed and I went, there you go. Um, so these kind of things are happening all the time. And it is this inner standing of who we truly are, that we are all connected through our thought form, through our energy. And it is such a lovely way to live. So maybe we ought to look at them separately first and then see how they interact with each other. So maybe we'll look at miracles. And what is a miracle? You know, a miracle is usually seen as something unexpected that seems to just land from nowhere. But of course, it never does. You know, a miracle is something that comes in response to something that you've already sent out but probably forgotten about. And so I have had many miracles of things that have occurred to me when I ought to have been heard, for instance. I can tell you several of those kinds of occurrences. But one that I'll share, which happened many years ago when I was first on this journey. I was out in the middle of the night with a group of friends who we were looking at some old Aboriginal land, and there was some really bad energy on it. And so we were walking around clearing it, and I tripped. And as I tripped, now it was pitch black, and my friends were walking around me. As I tripped, I was catapulted forward and up. And as they watched me, I suddenly felt like something moved me sideways. And then very gently, I landed on the grass. So when we got some torches out and had a look, if I had fallen forward where I tripped, I would have been impaled with these old rusty spikes. And they just stood there with, amazement. Is that a miracle? Or is that because there is a life force in me that actually knows that this is not my time to be impaled on some wire fence that we couldn't see? So to me, they're the kind of signs that give us the connection to a bigger picture. And so I want to talk to you about this bigger picture because we're getting so caught up on the trauma and the drama and the stresses of the smaller picture. But we're here to embrace the bigger picture where all these things are just normal, where we know we're always going to be protected and where we know that our thoughts are creating. So we're much more conscious about what we're thinking and what we're saying and what we're doing.
Thanks for sharing that beautiful story, Vaughn. I really appreciate that. And I totally agree with you. And I see miracles as something or an experience or a moment that defies all the odds. When everything seems stacked against us, then this event happens and it just captures us where it's like, wow, we didn't expect that would come off because it was like all were against us, but yet it happened. And I mean, sometimes I feel like it's easy to overlook and take for granted some of the miraculous things that happen in terms of the simplicity of life that creates miracles on a daily basis, and we can easily overlook them. And an example of that is my best friend. He turns 30 today, but his partner is literally just about to have a baby, and it's how practice is it to really trying to comprehend that this little life form is growing inside the stomach of another, and it's getting all this nourishment, and then this whole beautiful process that enables life to come onto this earth. It's like a miracle. Like, how does it work out that this event that's so natural for us, it happens often all the time, it's the whole reason we're all here. But I guess the reason why I'm sharing this is because it's easy to overlook some of these miraculous events that happen in our life and that occur very frequently and regularly, but without the awareness, as you mentioned, on the bigger picture of what's at play, we can easily forget. And what I love about this conversation is that we get to invite ourselves and also invite everyone listening into the conversation to remember some of the beautiful miracles that are present in our everyday life. And I love that. It was so good. We also got, I'm really excited to share, we've got Jabiru tuning in with us live, and she says her miracle is a beautiful death doula medium work, gifted with such beautiful clients. Yes, Von, this happens to me every day. My connection with the ancestors are always walking with me. It's lovely to hear from you. And I'd be curious, Yvonne, if you wanted to elaborate on that piece of looking at the bigger picture and seeing miracles in our daily lives.
Yes, it's how about just the miracle of life itself? We just take it for granted, and we just get so busy managing it and maintaining it, and we don't see the miracle of it. And we've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten that we are the miracle. We look out at nature and we see a beautiful tree and we see that as a miraculous thing. And we look at ourselves and all we see is flaws. But we are such an incredible expression of nature itself in human form. And we get so busy and distracted about thinking we have to earn that right. And I really want to bring this back to some practicality of what we're going through today. That this whole journey that humanity is going through is to bring us back to the memory that we are nature, to the memory of the miracle of life within us. And nothing is more obvious than when you're growing another life inside of you, and when you are observing the birth of new life. But I want to go to Jabiru Narelle and say, I so get how she feels, because I think one of the greatest miracles that I have experienced time and time again is to support someone to leave this body. I believe that is more miraculous and more beautiful. Well, not more, but it has such depth when you actually observe the thing that we ignore most of our lives, and that is the life force, to finally that last breath when suddenly everything that you knew about that person actually leaves. And what's left is this, the shell, the instrument that did such a good job. It's like saying goodbye to your old car. And then if you really see that, it is so, to me, that is a moment of divinity. When, yes, it's wonderful to welcome a new life into the world, and of course it's precious. But it's when that life has been lived and it is about to leave its vehicle. There is something so special and so divine and so precious about that I so get, Jabiru, and I know where you're coming from. And in that moment, you travel with that person through this portal, and you can see how it's set free. And it's that freedom that we're now seeking whilst staying in the body. That is the transition we're going through. And that, to me, is the miracle. I'm looking, after working on this for over 35 years, I am looking at humanity slowly coming to the realization that they are nature in human form, that they are a miracle of life. And that, to me, I watched that, and I have this community down here, and we had 30 people for brekkie, and people that were just coming in for a coffee. They just wanted to join us. It was because there is a light coming on inside of people where they suddenly go, you know what? All of that I have, all of that I've been busy trying to maintain and be approved of, and all the stress and stuff that I've put myself in, has just given me this feeling of, wow, where am I? where am I taking my energy? I have to bring it back to me, right? It is just so amazing. I absolutely love that. And that is the miracle that is unfolding in front of us, the birth or the rebirth of the true human life force as we're moving into this new time. It is so beautiful. So beautiful.
Yes, it is so beautiful. I love that, Yvonne. And it seems really powerful what you were sharing around going through like a death process as we alive, whether it be the death of our identity, as we spoke about in past videos, of the sunlight as it goes over the horizon of the day, the death of our ego at times when we recognize and open up our hearts to realize what it is we're actually here for, and to love more openly and compassionately with those that we find in our environment, particularly when there's, as it is now, heightened energy period, and there might be emotional triggers or responses coming to the surface. I know that for me, I've definitely had a lot of emotion coming up for me over the last few days, and to have the reflection process to realize that is this synchronistic, or is this a miracle, or what is this really going on within me that it's presenting itself as an opportunity for me to explore and to open my heart and to love and bring back home, and as you said, have that rebirth in the body while we're living, and have that in our perspective to really realize, the synchronistic um, miracle of life that we're living. Is it a coincidence that all of this happens at the same time as the moon is full? Or, and how does that coincide with our lives moving forward in these cycles and patterns of behavior and patterns of our way of perceiving the world? It's really great stuff. We've got heaps of people commenting at the moment, coming through Jabberoos again, saying today is the full moon. It's been a big week of death and rebirth. And Yvonne, I'm really curious as to hear from you around, these synchronistic events, just a perspective, or what's the difference between synchronicity and a miracle from your perspective, and how do we distinguish those?
Well, I think for me, I see all of these things, miracles as I see them, and coincidences and synchronicity. I see them all as signs. They're signs that I am operating in a higher state of consciousness, because that is where they live. And so when I become aware of them, I know that I must be there. So it's always a huge confirmation for me that when these things occur, and I know, whoa, I must have been coming, I must be really in a higher state of consciousness. And that encourages me to pay attention and to make sure that I stay in that vibrational frequency. So before I go to the synchronicity, I would like to have a look at the coincidences, because it is like so many things that are natural are poo-hooed, like our imagination, for instance. It's poo-hooed right at the beginning of our schooling. It's like, oh, stop dreaming and stop, that's only your imagination, and that's only a coincidence. That's just don't pay any attention to that. It's a coincidence. But what is a coincidence? A coincidence is two seemingly unrelated events coinciding, getting together at the same time. And that is a sign. It's a sign that you are operating in a different state of consciousness, where these things are messages. It's a message for you to pay attention. We must never ignore them, because it's like our GPS system. It is telling us this way. It's wonderful. Keep going. You're there. Every coincidence is telling you that you're on the right path. And then pay attention. What is it telling you? It's always a message. It's always a message coming from a higher frequency. So I love coincidences. You know, when you come across somebody that you thought about last week and you go, how did that happen? You know, I only thought about you last week and here you are. You're supposed to be in Africa and now you're walking right in front of me in the supermarket. That's a coincidence. There are coincidences happening all the time. The more that we pay attention to them, the more obvious they become. And of course, by telling you that they are unimportant, you stop paying attention to them, which keeps you trapped in the old, limited way of thinking and operating. Because if we had been taught from birth that we come here with an inner GPS system that will always guide us where we're meant to be for the highest good of ourselves and everyone else, for the purpose of the incarnation in the first place. Your life force created this with, function. What does Sovereign call it? It has a function with purpose. We didn't just fall out of the sky for no reason, but we're very quickly told that we have to earn the reason for being here, and so we spend the rest of our life slaving away to make that a reality. And that is where we're moving out of now. We're coming back to realizing that within us lies a power that knows. It knows beyond anything that comes from the external that is imprinted in our mind. So when you come across a coincidence, pay attention and really look at it and remember it and listen to it and allow it to give you the message. So the more that you see the miracles, the more miracles will come to you. The more that you see the coincidences, the more coincidences will come to you. You'll never really have to use the telephone again, because you just have to think of somebody and they will respond to you, because that's not a coincidence. That is just responding. I had something like that yesterday, because we're all connected in thought. So I was driving home and there was a big truck in front of me that turned into one of the streets near where I live. And I thought, oh, that's a big truck to be in this street. And instantly I knew that this truck was going to turn into the next 2 streets away. They gave me the name of the street. And I went, oh, okay then. And of course, it happened. Now, is that a coincidence? Was that just luck? No. It was because our thoughts are connected. So I tuned into the truck, whoever was driving it, and obviously his GPS was turn left at the next street. So these are the things that happen all the time, which makes life magical, but also very amusing. I just find it lots of fun. So don't ignore them.
That is a very good suggestion. Don't ignore them. And Jabiru says the same. She says, our soul sings to us. It's up to us to listen to the calling. And as you were sharing that story, it reminded me of a story that I was immersed in recently. And it's a beautiful story where one of my good friends, he had created a vision board of what he wants in his life. And on the vision board, there was this beautiful little picture of this mountain. And it looked like a random mountain, but it was on there because he loved the heights and the perspective that you can gain by climbing mountains, and the nature of these mountainous ranges. And so it was around 3 months later that he went on the journey to be a custodian of a tropical fruit farm. Mm-hmm. And as he was standing there on the fruit farm, 3 months later, he realized, as he looked out to the view from where he was living, there was that exact same mountain where he was standing and looking at from this new farm that he was living on. And it was just like one of those moments to realize, wow, like, you know, was that a coincidence? Did he create that? Is it a miracle? Is it all synchronized together to realize, you know, the power that we have to create, our magnificence and the brilliance that we are, to realize that we have access to and are always connected to the source of infinite intelligence. And to have that perspective of recognizing the miracle and the coincidences that arise in our life, for me, is a reminder that we are always tapped into that potential, which is a really exciting perspective and awareness to walk life with, because it opens up the question, what else is really possible when we're in alignment with that natural flow and that natural order? And so I'm curious to hear if on the synchronicities of life and how they come into sync with each other so that we can live with that integral kind of alignment.
And, you know, it's the alignment that we have to find, and it's the alignment with a natural self. And when you share that story, it reminds me of myself as a child. You know, I was born into a war zone. And when I remember that I used to lie in my bed when I would have been probably about 6, it was just after the war had supposedly finished. I now realize it never did. But I was lying in my bed and I was pretending to speak English. Now, I was terrified of the world outside, as you can imagine. So I was always a very quiet, internal kind of a person. I would just lie there. I wouldn't speak to anybody. And I would lie in my bed and I would pretend to speak to lots of people in English. Now, I'd never heard the language, didn't know what it was, right? And so I would lie there and I would lie in my little bed and I don't know what it would have sounded like, probably like what people now call, light language, because I'd be going, in my little bed. And so after the war, my parents decided to leave the country and we went to Indonesia, and then we came back and it was very crowded, and my father decided that he needed to go somewhere else to live for the family, and he applied to go to Peru, and we were all ready to go to Peru. And at the last minute, they changed their mind. I didn't know, I was a child, I was 12, 13 by then, and I was at school. And then I came home one day and he said, we're going to Australia. And to this day, I realized that I wasn't meant to go to Peru then. I was meant to come to Australia. And so we came here when I was 14. I spoke no English. But within 6 months, I spoke fluid English with very little accent. And I knew that had always been destined. However, there's a little second bit to that, because in 1996, I went to Peru to do my shamanic training. So now, were they coincidences or were they always meant to be? And so I believe that our soul path is destined. Your friend was already within him. He created this picture or found this picture of this mountain because it was already in his destiny. I was trying to speak English because it was already time, for me that was destined. My parents were thinking of Peru because that also was already destined for me at some stage. Just the timelines were different. And that's the magic of life when we look at it from a different place. And then you also start to see the synchronicities. One thing led to another thing, leads to another thing. And that's what synchronicity is. Synchronicity is the flow of nature. And when we learn to step into the flow of nature and move into this higher state of consciousness, where that is the norm, where you have a thought and there it is. And it's happening faster and faster these days because the planet is moving into a different frequency altogether. And so those of us who've always thought of ourselves as separate are starting to realize that something is changing out there. I asked for this, and look, that person just brought it to me. You know, it happens all the time. This synchronicity is so magical, and I'm sure that you've had lots of those experiences. And particularly now that you, Shay, are also moving into, the Earth Hero platform, and you're doing lots of documentaries about the ecology and coming back to nature. And once you do that, you're moving into a state of consciousness that is in alignment with nature, and that is when we see everything starting to flow. It's just ease and grace, and when we get out of that, it's struggle. So it's a simple decision, really, isn't it? Stay in the flow of nature.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Recognizing that's when we're in sync with the flow of nature. And I totally resonate with that and realize that when our vibration is in harmony with the frequencies that we're around, then those synchronistic events can happen. And that's, I love exploring the words, particularly around looking at, from that same root, we get syntropy and we get syncretism and we get synchronization. And it's ultimately looking at how the symbiosis in the words as well, it's all syntropically connected, essentially. All of life and all of energy and coherence is thriving and abundant, and miracles appear and happen, and these coincidences that unravel. And it's a really cool kind of perspective to have in life. And I feel for me as well, it's just been announced today that another series coming out from an experience that I was part of when I was studying in the United States. I grew up a college degree over there, and I was part of a documentary that was released on Netflix that looks at what it's like coming of age now. And just so happens, like, what are the chances, the slim, tiny, chances that I was captured in that moment and realized that all of that is syntropically having a function for me to become more aware of the miracles in life, that I have a purpose to realize where it is that I can plug into and how I can contribute and give back to the world in a positive way. And so this new film that has come out is a follow-up in the after spring break experience. And just like, sometimes I have to really pinch myself and be like, wow, is this really happening? Is this real? Like, is this a miracle? And it's sometimes it's overwhelming for me. It makes me emotional at times to realize, how incredible, fundamentally, this life really is. And yeah, to just bring Jabiru. She's been leaving a few comments, and she's mentioned that her life too has been destined to be a death doula from an early age, and I was always comfortable with death dying. And kind of going back to that topic that you mentioned, Bon, around the miracle of life and also the process of death, because it's a miracle. Like, if we didn't have the death process, then we wouldn't really be living, would we? We wouldn't have this life and this experience to enjoy the range of sensations. And so I'm curious to hear a bit more from you, Yvonne, to bring it all back into sync and back into harmony, to connect the dots there around, the brilliance that we have and to experience this life that we get to live.
Well, I always believe that when we are born here, we have died somewhere else. It's like, death is a leaving. So our part of our life force has left somewhere to come and be here. Just as when we finally finish being here, then the life force that dies here is moved into a different form, so therefore reborn into some other form. And so that is the cycle of life that just keeps rolling along. The problem is that we have forgotten this connection to this life cycle from the perspective of having been imprinted with the fear of death. And particularly these days, when that seems to be once upon a time, we used to, if we wanted to find out who had died, we'd have to go and read the whatever they call that thing. My friend used to see who had died and then notify me if it was somebody we knew. But nowadays, that is not every day we are being told, and so making this ending of this particular life on Earth as a really bad, terrifying thing when it's inevitable, and hopefully, otherwise we'd get awfully overpopulated. But also, it is this inner standing that we're here. Um, we're multidimensional beings. This time in this physical form is only temporary. And you're talking about the language and how all these words work together. And I come to think of the word synthesis, which is very similar. It's like bringing all of our differences together to create a whole that is so much bigger than the sum of its parts. And that is what synthesis is about. And I think that is what we're learning too. We have been so imprinted with the belief that we're all separate, and we're now suddenly being brought together, and we realize that at the foundation of us, we're all the same. We're not the same in the expression of this life force, but we're the same in the intent of the life force, which is pure love and expansion and growth into a higher state of consciousness. And it's just so wonderfully miraculous and coincidental and synchronistically visible now that people are brought together from all over the world, when in actual fact the intention was to separate us. The opposite has occurred. And you and I were speaking together, we would never have connected unless this had occurred. So for me, I'm just incredibly grateful on one hand, but also very aware that this was already set in consciousness. We have all got a role to play, and we're all being brought together to play that role. And the more that we connect with the obvious, which is that life, once it flows naturally, the struggle is gone. When we are in fear, we don't see the miracles, we don't see the coincidences, and we certainly are not in a state of synchronicity. And that is the transition that humanity is going through today. And it is wonderful to see. In the community that I'm certainly fueling every day, I see how people are responding to each other so differently. And when new people come, I say, well, do you think you've found your tribe? And they go, oh, yes. And I go, why? Because everything is so easy. It flows. We are open-hearted. And then in minutes, you find out, oh, I didn't know you came to this community. And all these people are suddenly finding themselves, some haven't seen each other for years. And there they are in the same community with the same intention, with the same heart connection that they never even knew about each other years ago. And that is just, to me, that's the miracle of life unfolding as I'm living today. And having worked towards this for 35 years and watching this now occurring, And watching the synthesis of the human species all coming together and recognizing that we are all different, but we're all one. And that is, for me, the miracle, the coincidence, and the synchronicity all in one.
That's so good, Yvonne. That's amazing. I love how you wrapped it all back in together into its synchronistic and syntropic style. So beautiful. I really appreciate you sharing these powerful messages for humanity at these times, for the community, and putting it out into the world. And there, again, I just wanted to highlight for those watching and tuning in right now that Yvonne has really dived deep into this and done some great video content with on this subject matter, and I've had the privilege to flesh out some of these conversations with Yvonne, and I want to invite you to watch more of those videos, because it can really uplift your day, because I know it has uplifted my day in many ways, and just served as a great reminder at the magnificence of life that we need to live. So, Yvonne, I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate your insights into the miracles of life. And I just want to thank you for your presence, and for those tuning in, those watching. We had quite a few people come on and leave us lots of messages saying that they thank you and they love it, and this is just so fantastic. So we do this for you guys and for the community, and to help uplift the spirit of humanity, particularly when it can be tough, challenging, and confronting times. That we just want to just leave these golden nuggets and these messages to uplift and celebrate the beauty of life. So thank you, Yvonne.
My pleasure. And my role is to inspire. And remember, look at the word. Inspire means to breathe life into. So the more we can do this work, the more we're breathing life back into the human soul.
Yes, that's so good. So we'll look forward to another episode next week. Next Thursday, it's likely Sovereign will be joining Yvonne in another discussion, and we hope you can join us. We just wanted to invite you to share this video, send us a comment or like it, and we really appreciate you, and thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.